Hi guys, so this is the infamous pocket tutorial for Russian dress Sydney by Russian company Vicky Sews, and this is the tutorial. So what we need for this is, I have a piece of fabric, but this is going to be your front bodice, and I've written in here top right side so that we know where in the pattern piece we are, and then in the back we will have it interfaced around the area of the welt pocket. Then next part what we'll need is the welt piece. Again, it will have to be interfaced. Then the next part is going to be a pocket reinforcer cut out of lining fabric. Then we will have the smaller part of a pocket cut out of a lining fabric, and we have the bigger part of a pocket cut out of the main fabric. Now on your lining, I would suggest that you take your pattern, and when you're cutting it out, just mark your welt opening and just mark it on both of your pieces for this, and trust me, it will help. Then also I suggest that you take your lining piece and you mark your 1 centimeter seam allowance on this one, so you mark that, and then also you take your main fabric piece, and on this one, believe it or not, the seam allowance is a 1.5 centimeter, so you mark that one off as well across the whole piece. First thing we do is we take our welt piece and we fold it right sides together, and we're going to stitch on the short sides, and the seam allowance on there is 1.5 centimeters, which is 5/8 of an inch. So we just do it on both sides, here and here. Okay, so we stitched our welt part right sides together, and then we're gonna make sure that we clip. Make sure that you clip carefully to not clip through your seam that you just stitched. And now what we do is we turn it out, and very gently we turn it out, make the corners nice and sharp. Okay, now ideally you would have to go and press this, but for the demonstration purposes we just skip those things. I'm just telling you, if you're making your dress, you go ahead and press this. And next thing the instructions tell us to do is to top stitch these 3 sides, not the raw one, with 4.0 length stitch and a 0.5 centimeter away from the edge. Now then it tells us to baste this part, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to top stitch all 4 sides, and this side will be as a basting, and then this side will serve as top stitching. So just go ahead and do that. Okay, so we are now going to top stitch. I'm going to set my stitch to 4.0. I'm going to put it on reinforce at the beginning of the seam. We're going to start here. This foot, I think it's called quilter's foot, it has a 0.5 centimeter on this side, which is super helpful with top stitching. It doesn't have to be perfect. Now we reinforce again. and then we go across, because this is our raw edge and we just want to secure this edge so it doesn't have to be straight or anything. It's just literally, for us, it's going to be inside the seam allowances, so you won't see it. Okay, so now I suggest that you take your top stitched piece that we just did and you mark a 1 centimeter from the raw edge and you draw a line there. I use my blue marker because I know it's gonna come out in the wash. Just a couple of control marks here. There we go. Okay, so that part is ready now. Next thing they tell us to do is turn your front piece to the wrong side. This is your wrong side. Take your reinforcement piece and place it right side down to the wrong side of a dress so that your pointy bit is pointing downwards. And we're going to match these points here. It doesn't have to be perfect, but as close as you get. If you don't like hand basting, I strongly advise you to just do it this one time, because what they ask you to do is hand baste around this line. I think it's super important that you do that so that it doesn't move around. Okay, so what I do is, for hand basting, I use a rayon machine embroidery threads, which is slippery and it's strong enough to hold the seam together, but then you can break it quite easily as well. So, and you can pull it out when you have secured your seam permanently. It's really easy to come out as well. And even if you stitched through it, it'll still come out really easily, unlike your normal polyester, like all-purpose thread. So what I'm going to do is just stitch around and start in the middle, and as I go I'm just going to make sure that on the other side we're staying on the line. So we kind of want to connect two fabrics together, so align them so they are the same, following the same outline on both sides. This is quite important. And then again, just keep checking. Something like that. So when I finish my seam, I try to not put the knot on the other side of the thread, only because for the ease of pulling it out. So I'm just going over the area I've already stitched in just to kind of secure it. And that's it. And then I just snip snip and we're ready to crack on with it. Okay, close enough, that'll do. Okay, so we've done that. This is our top wrong hand side. We now flip it across, so we're back on top. Right side is here. Now we take this part that we've already prepared and we place it with this line that we drew, and this line has to align with this line here, and that's why I kind of drew over a little bit so that you have a bit of a reference as to where the line goes. The pockets, edges stop where our outline for the welt stops, and also just to make sure that this line matches on the back as well, because that's where we're stitching it. This seam will go from here to here. We will reinforce the seam on both sides, and we have to make sure that it does not get on the main fabric. So it literally stays on the top part. The seam starts here and it ends here, okay, and not on this part of the dress. Okay, so we've done our seam. Just to show you, I didn't go over the edge, just stitched it here and not over this part here. Now what we do next is we take our lining and we position it face down like this, over this seam, and we have to make sure that the edges align and this little notch aligns as well. And we're going to be stitching exactly the same seam. I know this pocket is longer, but we do not go over still this line here. I can actually feel it with my fingers where the seam is, and I like to pin the beginning and the end of the welt flap underneath, so that we again don't go over the edge even on the pocket lining piece. So this is where it starts and this is where it ends, and we stitch in exactly the same line as before. So there we go. And that's why we marked a 1 centimeter allowance, because it's the same allowance as the piece that we just attached. Right, let me just do that and come back to you. And just remember, do not go over these. Do not go over on the main fabric, and reinforce your seam at the beginning and at the end. Okay, I've just done my seam. So just to show you, we did not go over this seam here, and the same on the back. And two our stitches are kind of same line, but you'll be fine. And then next thing it tells us is to take our main pocket parts, and the main pocket part goes like another ear, like this. Okay, and what we do is we align this seam here that we marked with this top seam here, and like to just make sure that your corners here on the same level, and also here. And then again, just to remind you that we do not go over this pocket opening line. So I marked myself the beginning of my seam, and I marked myself the end, or the other way around, whichever, so that we know we do not stitch past that. And now all we need to do is just to make sure that we got the seam is aligned. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to stitch this seam again. Do not go past these pins here. So this seam has to be aligned with this seam. They have to be a similar length or same length. Okay. Okie dokie. So we've stitched the seams. This is our right side, looks like this, and our reverse side looks like this. So we're going to be working with this one here now. What we have is the outline of our welt pocket. We're going to put a line through the middle, right to the center, like this, and I would suggest, I don't know, like 2 centimeter mark on each side, and then you go from your corner of your stitching into that mark and you mark it like under the angle, like this and like this. Yeah, mark it to your line of stitching, not to what you previously drew, because you can see that my stitching went slightly off, so we match to that one. Now we are going to cut through. I would strongly suggest pinning the seam allowance back, so pinning it away, because I'm going to tell you for free that you will cut through it, and just don't question me on this, just trust me. Yeah, don't worry about the other one because it's only 1 centimeter long, so it's not going to be caught. Now what we're going to do is just take our scissors and make a little snip here, and then just go up to this line here, and on this line I pull away with my fingers all our seam allowance and the welt pocket seam allowance, the welt bit, and I'm sure I'm only cutting through these 2 fabrics, and I'm cutting almost to the corner, almost like literally 1 millimeter away from the corner, and the same with this one, so that we do not cut through our stitch line. So we do that on both sides. We cut it to this corner here, then we make sure that our seam allowances are out of the way, and we clip it almost, but not through, not right through. And then again on this one I just kind of flip it away and I cut it to our stitching line here. Okay, this is the exciting part. I love this part. Now we turn it around. Right, so let's just unpin this here, because we've been good and we didn't damage anything that we shouldn't have, so that's fine. So now we go and we put our pockets through the hole, okay, and literally push all the seam allowances on the other side, all of it on the other side, and just make sure that these little corners are staying on the inside and away from your slit opening. Okay, so at this point I would suggest you go and iron it. I don't know, maybe I should go and iron it, I don't know. Let's just see what it looks like on the other side. And sorry, that pocket goes like this. So this is our, do you know what, we didn't clip enough on this side, so let me just go and take a tiny bit more. There you go. Okay, try again. Yeah, this is it. This is our welt pockets. If you iron it, it'll just look like this. I think I could probably snip a tiny bit more as well, but you know, you will just see what yours look like. Then if we flip it over on your wrong sides, this is what you'll see, and this is all your top seam allowance here. And the next thing they tell us to do, we'll deal with these in a minute, is they tell you in order to conceal all these raw seams, you will now have to stitch this pocket reinforcer to your lining. Yeah, that's the pointy bit that we attached first on the wrong hand side, and this is what it's for, which I think is super clever. So they tell you in instructions at this point to overlock or finish this seam here. So I'm just going to overlock it now, and I'm going to attach it to the pocket, and I'm going to come back to you to do the rest. Okay, so I've overlocked and attached the reinforcement piece to our pocket lining, and it looks like this. This is the inside. Now, by now you would have ironed this, so these little thingies will not be sticking out like they do online. Naughty, naughty. They also tell you in the instructions to hand baste this flap, but I didn't do it. I don't know. If you want to do it, at this point you will have ironed everything. Made sure that your little pointy bits are pointing on the inside and away from your pockets. And this is your front, this is your back, and now we're going to align and pin the pocket pieces all the way around, like literally all the way around here. And if you want, you can even go as far as doing a nice cute little bias binding or Hong Kong finish in this. I think it would look adorable with some light fabric so that it doesn't create too much bulk. But tell you what, if this was my first sample, I would have probably done that because I was still very excited about it. But at this point, this is sample number 5. I'm just glad I've got this far. Just make sure that's all been secured. Nothing sticking out on the right side. We're gonna flip it check in a minute. Anyway, I'm just gonna pin that and stitch that and then overlock it, and I'm gonna come back and tell you what the last step is. But I think it's looking pretty good. I hope you agree with me. Okay, looking good. This is what we've got. I just ironed mine. This is what we have on the wrong sides. I think it's quite cute. The pockets had a little bit more fabric on the lining, which is not uncommon, and it doesn't matter on the inside. You can make it even short, you can make it whatever you want, the body of a pocket. I stitched it 1 centimeter allowance here. I actually stitched it 1 centimeter everywhere, and I'm sure it doesn't really matter that much. I just didn't want to get too close to my pocket details. This is what we have on the right hand side. I think what I would do now, if this was an actual dress, I would go ahead and I would unpick. See how easy it breaks? It's brilliant. I would unpick all my basting stitches. In this case, I will only unpick them where they're showing, again for the purpose of this demonstration. Next thing we need to do is we stitch on the right hand side. I think if you're a little nervous, you should probably just hand baste it or even pin like in the middle here so it doesn't move around, but do you know what, it looks pretty sturdy to me. I don't think it'll be moving around. We stitch along the stop stitching line from here to here, and we secure the thread, secure the seam on both sides, and then from here to here. It's almost like stitching in the ditch, except there's not ditch and just a line of stitching. So just do that. Okay, so we stitched along these two top stitching lines. Looks like this. And like this. And it looks like this on the inside. And the lastest thing to do about these fabulous pockets, I'm only saying fabulous because we're friends now, is to slip stitch these two edges together. So I've threaded a needle and I'm gonna go into this corner so that my knot will stay on the inside. And basically what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be catching a few threads here on the edge, and then a few threads here as like a little ladder in turn, each side in turn, as I'm moving from left side to the right sides. So theoretically all the stitches are kind of hidden in the folds, in between the folds of a fabric, but it just kind of catches like this. So again, just catch a little bit here, catch a little bit there, catch a little bit here, and then catching one little stitch here before we go through to the wrong side underneath the pockets. So that's pretty much it. And what I'm going to do here is just secure my threads by knotting it a few times. I'm always paranoid that my knots come undone, so I just do it several times. And then I'm gonna kind of thread it through to make the end a little bit longer, and then I chop it off. There we go. That's one side done, and then I'll just do the other side, and then our pocket is finished. So with this one, I'm gonna start again in the corner here. Just come out in the corner and just catch the opposite side, then catch this side, then catch the opposite side, and just keep going like a little ladder. This slip stitch doesn't have to be very strong, because this is not the area that is going to get a lot of stress whilst you're wearing it. So again, we're just going to stick our needle in a corner here, and then make sure that it comes out on the underneath your pockets, that nobody sees any knots, and then secure the thread on the lining, because it's a bit more bulk on there, so it's easier, like this, and just do that. And that's, my friends, how we do these pockets. Obviously these basting stitches shouldn't be there if that was a garment, and also this blue marker will come out with the wash, or it comes out with a bit of water, doesn't matter. And then this is our little pocket. I think it's quite doable. I think with this tutorial you will be able to achieve this look in your first go, I think. And if this helps you with your sewing, and if you install these pockets and you have a successful result similar to this one or better, can you just tag me on Instagram or leave a comment under this video? I would absolutely love to see what you've done. Thank you for watching, and I see you guys in my next video. Bye.